I walked up to the temple alongside Garnet. The sun had already dipped below the horizon, and the shadows of the courtyard stretched long and uneven. I glanced at Garnet. "Is there a catch to living with you?"
No catch,
she said, as always, calm and unreadable. I raised an eyebrow. "Then why am I still being allowed here? Nobody else has ever lived here like permanently."
For your
Garnet
safety,
replied in that same flat, definitive tone. I sighed. Fine, no point pressing her further. The temple doors slid open before us, and I stepped inside. The main room looked unchanged from before: a couch, a table, a TV, and the fridge tucked into the corner. The dim glow from the windows gave the place a strange quiet that felt almost intimate. "Where's everyone?" I asked.
They'll be back soon,
Garnet said, gesturing vaguely.
30 minutes at most.
I nodded and moved toward the couch, settling in for a moment. Garnet turned and walked toward the back, past the glowing pad. She pressed her hand against the wall marked with a star. The wall slid open with its familiar hum. She disappeared inside, and the stone surface sealed behind her. "Not a wall." "Noted." I rumbled a sigh as my stomach reminded me I hadn't eaten yet. I headed for the fridge. I opened it. A few remnants from earlier sat inside. Nothing exciting, but enough to fill me up. I grabbed a leftover burrito and popped it in the microwave. Just as I leaned against the counter, waiting, a blur of movement came from the doorway. Before I could react, wham! I went flying to the floor as a familiar purple blur tackled me from behind. "Amethyst!" I gasped, flailing my arms.
"Jason!"
She yelled, looking me into some kind of wrestling hold before I even had a chance to process. "Get off me, Tiny!" I shouted, twisting and kicking.
Who are you calling
She
Tiny?
barked, tightening her grip.
And why are you back in
Everything
here?
happened fast. I struggled, trying to push her off, but she was just relentless. Every movement I made was anticipated. Every attempt to wriggle free met with her weight pinning me down.
Amethyst?
Pearl's shrill voice rang out from somewhere behind us. The sudden cry froze Amethyst for a fraction of a second. I barely had time to catch my breath before she snapped her attention back to me, slightly confused now. Pearl stood there, arms crossed, looking like she'd aged a decade in the last minute.
Why did you attack him?
She demanded.
Obviously.
Amethyst huffed, still keeping me
Because
pinned
I
because
didn't recognize him at first. I thought he was Jason.
Pearl's eyes narrowed. "Jason? It's Garion. Him not Jason," I muttered between gasps. Amethyst's expression flickered. "Oh, right.
Oh, sorry, dude."
I muttered under my breath. "Yeah, save it," and shoved her off as best I could, finally rowing to my feet. I shot her a glare and started toward the kitchen to get away from the chaos. From behind me, Pearl's voice cut sharp and accusing.
"Amethyst, I told you not to tackle anyone without checking first, especially Garion."
I'm bothered by Pearl's scolding, and muttered something under her breath about accidental heroics. I just shook my head, silently thankful that Garnet had disappeared into the back again. No comment, no judgment, just her usual calm presence keeping the edges of the temple in order. I sat on the couch with Amethyst. She was noisily munching on chips, leaning against me like a human-shaped beanbag. It was getting to the point where I could barely move. "Amethyst, give me some room, you're crowding me," I muttered, nudging her lightly. She huffed, shifting just enough to be annoying on purpose, then stretched dramatically, rubbing her stomach. "Better?" she asked, smirking. Finally I muttered. Pearl was nearby, dusting with her usual precision. For once, she wasn't criticizing anyone or hovering. It almost felt peaceful. Then it happened. A blur shot through the open window. Before I could react, something small, fast, and alive dove straight into my shirt. I screamed loud, high-pitched, completely undignified, thrashing and clawing at my chest, trying to get it out. I stumbled backward and bumped into Pearl, who dropped her duster immediately. The thing burst out and skittered across the floor and shimmered. Its body stretched unnaturally, limbs twisting, fur shifting into skin, purple replacing grey. In seconds, Amethyst was sprawled on the floor, laughing hysterically. I got you!
You thought I was a real squirrel, didn't you?
I stared at her, still catching my breath. "What?" Her arms, looking like she had aged 10 years in 5 seconds.
All gems have shape-shifting abilities, Garion.
Explain that? I asked.
I will
She
not.
said flatly. Amethyst
It's
grinned.
because we have little robot leeches inside us that rearrange everything. But on weekends they go see Bob, so we can't shapeshift then?
Pearl groaned.
Amethyst, that is completely inaccurate.
I said technically. Amethyst shrugged. Pearl pinched the bridge of her nose, then sighed.
We can alter our forms, objects, body parts, full transformations.
She instantly shifted into a purple version of Pearl and slapped her own backside. I stared. "You just walked Pearl straight."
Well, of course I can shapeshift. I'm perfect.
Poop, Amethyst added, dissolving into laughter. I turned and walked out. I needed air. The beach was quieter. Waves rolled in steadily, the scent of salt cutting through the lingering chaos in my head. I spotted a water gun lying abandoned in the sand. I picked it up, filled it at the shoreline, and kept walking. Connie sat nearby, reading. I peeked around the corner, aimed PSSSHHH, and soaked her book before immediately bolting. I didn't wait to see her reaction. Further down, I noticed something crumpled in the sand. A damp piece of paper. and something else. Movement. In the shadows. I stepped closer. Something slammed into me. Hard. I hit the ground as something grabbed me. I shouted, struggling, throwing punches on instinct. My fist connected and sank in slightly. Not solid, not normal. It felt like striking something packed together too tight, like wet paper stretched over something wrong. The scrappadillan. Get off me, I shouted, hitting it again. It barely reacted. It moved fast, too fast. Something rough was yanked over my head, blocking my vision. I clawed at it, twisting, kicking, trying to break free. No use. It dragged me. Everything went dark. I woke up on cold concrete. My hands were bound paper rope, tight and reinforced. I pulled against it. It didn't budge. The room was dim. Shapes slowly came into focus. Sadie, Lars, others. What's going on? I asked, voice low. Why are we here? Sadie didn't look at me. To feed on us. My stomach dropped. The sound cut through the silence. Scraping. Slow. Heavy. Deliberate. Everyone froze. The scrappadillan entered, its form twitching slightly, tongue flicking in and out. Moved slowly, head turning, scanning, not random, searching. I made myself smaller, pressing into the ground, barely breathing. It lingered, then left. Silence. I didn't wait. I twisted, reaching for a shard of broken glass nearby. It took effort, slow, careful, but I cut through the paper binding. I stood, keeping low. The exit was close. I could make it. I moved quietly, step by step, a sound behind me, a wheezing growl. I knew. I dove behind stacked crates, barely making it in time. My heart pounded so loud I was sure it could hear it. The creature moved slowly now, closer, stopping, listening. Its tongue flicked again as it leaned toward the gap between the boxes. Closer, closer. A crash echoed from across the warehouse. The creature snapped toward the sound and bolted after it. I exhaled sharply. Then I heard it. Quiet squeak. White rat, with a purple gemstone embedded in it. Amethyst, I whispered.
Yeah?
She whispered back. Quiet. Relief hit, but it didn't last.
Come on, we need to
she
go.
said. We need to go. Now, I glanced at the exit. Freedom. Then I looked back at the others. Still tied up. Still waiting. Still going to die if we left. I hesitated, just for a second. No, I said quietly. We're not leaving them. Amethyst studied me for a beat, then nodded. All right,
then we do this the hard way.
I followed the tiny rat Amethyst through the shadows, heart hammering with every squeak of the floorboards and scrape of crates. My hands were scraped and bleeding, my chest heaving as I tried to stay silent. The warehouse smelled worse than before, stale rot mixed with burned wood and the faint metallic tang of blood. Amethyst led me through a tangle of crates and broken machinery.
Quiet, it's still around here somewhere.
Her form was tense, ears flicking as if she could sense every movement before it happened. I swallowed hard. Where are the others? She glanced over her shoulder, eyes glinting with a mix of mischief and urgency. Still tied up in the storage room. We'll get them, but we need a plan. I hesitated. My first instinct was to charge in, to rip them free immediately, but the scrappadillan was hunting. It wasn't just strong, it was smart. One wrong move, and we'd all be its next meal. Okay, I said finally, voice low. We lure it away first. Amethyst's grin returned, but it didn't reach her eyes.
Exactly. Follow my lead.
She shifted into a shadowy shape, blending with the darkness. I barely noticed her move as she darted across the floor, letting out a shrill squeak and knocking over a stack of crates. The scrappadillan screeched in fury, its head snapping toward the noise. Now, Amethyst hissed. I dove forward, rowing between crates, staying low. My mind raced, every step calculated, every breath measured. The creature's shriek echoed through the warehouse, a horrible mix of rage and curiosity. It was moving, but its attention was fixed on Amethyst's distraction. I reached the storage room where the others were tied. Sadie's eyes widened in relief when she saw me. Lars half crouched in fear. Garion, how? Not now, I whispered, cutting through the rope with the shard. We need to move before it comes back. One by one, I helped untie them, careful to stay silent, careful to stay fast. Every second counted. Sweat stung my eyes, my hands shook, but Amethyst's eyes kept scanning the shadows, signaling when it was safe to move. Finally, we were all free. I led them through the twisted maze of crates, keeping low, hearts pounding in unison. The scrappadillan's screeches sounded again, closer this time, more furious than ever. Amethyst hissed, tunnel over there under the broken conveyor belt. Hurry! We scrambled through the narrow opening, limbs scraping, breath shallow. I felt a fleeting pang of fear. What if it was waiting on the other side? But Amethyst's steady presence calmed me enough to keep moving. On the other side, we crouched behind a pile of abandoned boxes. My chest burned from running, my hands trembling. We made it, I whispered, barely believing it. Amethyst leaned against me briefly, her form solid, reassuring. We're not out of this yet, she said. Her tone was firm, no trace of her usual teasing. There was seriousness that there always was when survival was at stake. I nodded, heart racing. I made sure everyone got out. I turned to leave. I'd come back to kill it with the rest of the gems. Suddenly it slammed into me from behind and pinned me to the ground. I grabbed a lighter on the ground, lit it and put it up against its arm. Come on, come on. The scrapadillion caught fire. It slowly spread across its body. It screeched in pain. It chased me while on fire, spreading though its body. I ran into the street fast as I could. It cornered me against some cars. It was still on fire. It loomed over me. I thought it was all over, but suddenly a spear burst through its chest, the spear barely missing the top of my head. It was fully up in flames. It screeched again, its body burning and smoking, smoldering, writhing. Eventually it stilled, its body going limp. It smelled like burnt paper and oddly cooked meat. Suddenly a charred husk collapsed out of it and landed against me. It took a second for me to realize it was Jason. I screamed an unmanly scream and scrambled away as fast as I could. I was horrified. That was what happened to Jason. I didn't want to process it any further. The gem shards were on the ground and Pearl picked the shards up and bubbled them. The flames crackled low, dying down to embers. No one said anything. I sat on the curb, arms resting on my knees, staring at the blackened spot in the road where it had burned. My hands still smelled like smoke. Behind me, I could hear Pearl finishing the last bubble. Soft, controlled, like nothing had happened. I swallowed. That was Jason. No one answered. I let out a shaky breath, rubbing my face hard. That was my fault. The words just sat there. The waves rolled in somewhere far off, steady and uncaring. I didn't look back at them. I couldn't. End of episode.